My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. Jesus is the good shepherd who knows each one of us and calls each one of us. He wants to lead us in the way that'll be best for us, but he doesn't force us to walk with him. He simply invites. That invitation begins in the way that we were made. The God of all creation placed his plan in us already. That invitation is in the waters of baptism. Our Savior has made us one with him, brought us into communion with him. I was thinking about the words of one of the songs in our school musical, The Lion King Jr., that the students were performing this weekend. The song says, "He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything we see. Into the water, into the truth, in your reflection, he lives in you." How appropriate for the Easter season when we ask, where is this risen Christ? God made us in his image, and through the waters brought us into union with Christ. And through the Eucharist, we celebrate our communion in that oneness of Christ. St. Paul and St. Barnabas in our first reading knew that Christ lived in them. They were living out that sense of showing Christ to others through the way that they shared their faith. Every one of us is called to follow Christ, to discern how we're called to shape our lives according to his example, to allow Christ to live in us. Every one of us needs to be listening to the voice of the Good Shepherd, because there's an invitation to each of God's children to reflect his love in the world. The Second Vatican Council talked a lot about the universal call to holiness. In other words, every one of us is called to be holy, to allow God's holiness to shine through our lives. Did you hear in our second reading today from the book of Revelation, there's this vision of heaven, and there's this great multitude which no one could count, from every race, nation, people, and tongue. There's a universal call, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in life, to look again at the life of Christ, that great example that's been given to us of what life was meant to be. It's an invitation to live life fully, according to God's awesome plan, to recognize the potential God placed in each one of us, and to use the gifts and talents already placed in our lives to allow the glory of that divine plan to be seen through us. That's what happens when a mom and dad bring new life into the world, allowing their love to be life-giving, just like God's love. That's what happens when a priest hears confessions and allows his love to be forgiving, just like God's love. That's what happens when a nun prays for us in her monastery and allows her love to be self-giving, just like God's love. And in each vocation, there's a humility, a willingness to be the sheep, to listen and to follow Christ, knowing that Christ doesn't force us to conform, but invites us each step of the way to walk after him. Did it sound a little odd to you when the reading said, "The Lamb will shepherd you"? I mean, isn't that a little backwards? Yet that's the kind of shepherd we have. One who's walked among us as the Lamb, one who understands our lives, our struggles, our confusion, and our stubbornness, and one who continues to invite us. So take some time to pray about how God is calling you today, and listen for that voice of the Good Shepherd. He's not yelling at you. He's inviting you to something you were always meant to be